They didn't just brand me a quitter. My own mother did the honors. At my brother's party she leaned toward my aunt and, thinking I couldn't hear, breathed, "She's worthless. She always folds." I've taken shrapnel, stitched myself with trembling hands in a blackout tent, and still nothing cut as clean as that sentence. I left the uniform years ago, but that night in Texas I learned the only battlefield that never rotates off the schedule is family. The highway back home ran flat and sun-bleached, heat mirage rippling off the asphalt like it was trying to wave me away. I drove anyway. I'm Captain Rhea Calder, 35, former Army Medical Operations. Most of my scars don't show up in photos. In that town they didn't see a veteran. They saw one word and nailed it over my name: quitter. I stepped into my mother's kitchen and the muscle memory hit. The scent of cumin and frying onions, the clatter of serving spoons, her voice pitched high with pride for my brother Logan. He'd done a brief stint in the reserves. No deployments, no sand in his boots, but to her he was the family's flag bearer. She pressed our late father's silver watch into his palm like a coronation. "It's time it stayed with the one who honors it," she said. I took a chair at the edge of the room and felt it shrinking under me. No eye contact. No nod. Just background noise with a pulse. On the counter sat an envelope with my name written in my mother's careful script. Inside, an invitation to a family banquet at the only hall our town rents when it wants to feel fancy. "A night for the Calders to come together," she'd written. For half a second I considered tearing it cleanly across the middle. I could dodge the whole scene, but I knew how it would play: skip the event to prove their point. So I slid the invitation back under the ceramic rooster and kept my mouth shut. The air in that house carried weight. Judgment has mass if you've ever breathed it. Even the quiet hummed with accusations nobody dared say out loud. The plan for the night was simple: food, speeches, a little small-town hero worship. But I could feel the pressure drop the way it does before a storm. I've stood in Tussies listening to radios pop with bad news. This felt the same. Driving toward the hall after sunset, neon bled into the windshield and tugged at old memories I usually keep locked. I didn't leave the army because I was soft. A live-fire training accident nearly turned my spine into modern art. The surgeon showed me options, none of them good, and I did what soldiers do. I made a decision. Stay in and I might be in a chair by 40. Step out and I could keep serving differently. So I changed my battlefield. I joined a small team building medical tech for combat medics. Gear that buys time when time is the difference. There's one moment I keep in my pocket for the days when the noise gets loud. A medic collapsed on a gravel pad, hands slick and useless after a mass casualty drill went sideways. He reached for our prototype field kit, mine, the one I'd argued for when people said it was overbuilt, and used it exactly the way we designed. Pressure, seal, stabilize, communicate. The casualty kept breathing. Simple as that, and not simple at all. I watched the monitor numbers hold, and for once the world felt quiet. No parade. No speech. Just a life that didn't slip away because someone had the right tool within reach. My family never wanted that story. They wanted the version where I walked away. In their heads, honor wears a single uniform and never changes orders. I know better. Mission is mission, whether you carry it in a rucksack or in a hard case stamped with a serial number. So I parked outside the banquet hall, palms steady on the wheel, and ran a mental check like I always do. Breathe, posture, eyes up, say less. If I'd learned anything downrange, it's that you don't win by arguing with the weather. You brace, you enter, you hold your ground. And then you let the storm show you what it's made of. My family never wanted the part where lives were saved. They preferred the headline where I walked away. So I took the end seat at the long table and went quiet. The room hummed, forks chiming, ice clinking against glass, laughter bouncing off rented chandeliers. I breathed slow, counting to 4 like I'd taught nervous privates before their first jump. Then the first round landed. A neighbor leaned in, projecting just enough for the table to hear. I heard she got tossed out. Couldn't even pass the PT, shame. The words sliced clean through the chatter. Faces pivoted toward me like turrets looking for confirmation. Across the table my brother, Logan, let a smile creep in, the kind men wear when they think the fight's already decided. He crawled up my neck. I locked my jaw and chose silence. Paper-thin armor, but armor all the same. Plates arrived, steam rising, rosemary and butter everywhere. I tasted none of it. Logan lifted his glass and went for the easy applause. At least our cousin who just enlisted knows what honor looks like. Not like some people. Laughter rolled low around the table, a mean current under polite music. I watched the napkin in my lap, knuckles whitening beneath the fabric, pulse hammering hard enough to bruise. Then the voice I'd prayed to never hear joined in, my mother's. She bent toward my aunt, but she might as well have used the microphone. She has no worth. All she does is quit. The words hit like an open-handed slap. Metallic taste. Swallow. Hold. Conversations flowed on as if nothing had cracked. Inside me weather shifted. This wasn't rumor. This was blood. They weren't just misunderstanding my life. They were erasing it. The air thickened. I could feel eyes on my shoulders, my cheekbones, the way a crowd studies a target before the throw. A chair back creaked and a local veteran, someone who used to orbit around my brother's little glory, leaned out and pitched his line to the room. You didn't leave on your own. You got booted because you couldn't keep up, right? Heads bobbed. Lips tightened with satisfaction. A uniform, even an old one, carries weight in places like this. I drew breath to answer, and that's when another ghost walked in. Cole Mercer. Ex-boyfriend, now husband to the woman on his arm, both of them gleaming like a storefront window. He tilted his head so the light hit just right and smirked. You swore you'd be a lifer, Rhea. Guess for life. Was shorter than we thought. The table broke into little bursts of laughter, glasses knocking together like cymbals. Heat rushed all the way to my scalp. Vision tunneled. Speak and I'm defensive. Stay quiet and they'll stamp it as an admission. It's a no-win drill, by design. The master of ceremonies, Logan's buddy since middle school, snatched the mic, grinning like he'd been waiting for this cue. Let's toast the only Calder who knows how to stop halfway. Scattered claps, then snickers, the kind that travel fast. Each sound landed sharp. I stopped being a guest the moment the joke became a game. I was the show. My chair scraped as I stood. Every cell in me said move, exfil now. But a voice from the far end cut across the room. She'll never be remembered for anything in the service. Not now. Not ever. That one went in deep and twisted. My throat burned. Tears tried and failed. Fury blocked them at the gate. I curled my hands until my nails bit. They wanted a scene, wanted me to detonate so they could call me unstable on the ride home. I pulled a breath until it hurt and locked my posture. Shoulders down. Chin level. Not one tremor. I turned toward the door, chest hollow, legs heavy like I'd strapped on lead plates. I wasn't running. I was refusing to perform. I had no idea the prelude was over. The storm I'd been bracing for all night was already rolling in, and it was bringing company I never expected. I only wanted the exit. Fingers on the handle, one more step and I was gone. Then a sound cut the room in half. Low and mechanical at first, growing into a hard grind that swallowed the chatter. Tires bit into gravel outside. Every fork froze midair, glasses hovered, heads turned toward the tall windows. Through the glass, headlights carved a tunnel through dust as a green military vehicle rolled to a stop. Wrong backdrop for chandeliers and rented linens, which is probably why the whispers started. The door swung open. A general stepped down. Dress uniform. Rows of ribbons. That stillness senior leaders carry when chaos has learned to obey them. The hall entrance pushed wide, and the cadence of his boots on polished floor turned every neck. Each step pulled the oxygen out of the room. Conversations died half-formed. Chairs creaked. Someone near the dessert table whispered, "What's a general doing here?" It came out more fear than curiosity. My hand slid from the handle. Pulse thudding in my throat. I'd braced for weather. This was a front line I didn't see coming. He didn't scan for Logan. Didn't acknowledge the MC strangling a microphone. His line of march was straight to me. He stopped at arm's length, heels together, chin level. His right hand rose, sharp, precise, and for a heartbeat the whole hall watched a salute land where mockery had been. "Captain Calder," he said, voice clean enough to carry to the back wall, "you didn't quit. You took the harder mission and saved more lives than anyone in this room will ever know." He dropped the salute and gripped my hand firm, professional. Somewhere behind us, a glass slipped and shattered. No one moved to sweep it up. Logan tried to laugh, thin and brittle. "Sir, there's been a mix." "I don't misidentify my own," the general cut in, tone like steel laid flat. He turned slightly, letting his gaze sweep the crowd. Her medical training pipeline kept 14 recruits breathing during an exercise that should have written letters home. 14. That's not rumor. That's record. He let the math hang there. Faces changed shape. Smirks folded into silence. People who'd been eager to watch me bleed found sudden interest in their napkins. The mic in the MC's hand popped weakly and went dead like it knew better. Nobody dared fill the quiet. The general reached for a nearby glass of red, rolled it once, then lifted it shoulder high so there was no missing the intent. She didn't abandon anything, he said, calm and absolute. She changed battlefields, from the line to the lab, and more service members are alive because of it. That, he finished, is what honor looks like. No one argued. They couldn't. The room finally understood there are some verdicts you don't get to overturn with a whisper. The general's words hit harder than any insult thrown all night. The same room that had buzzed with jokes now held its breath. Forks hovered, glasses settled untouched. Every gaze swung to me, no longer mocking, just unsettled, embarrassed, some plainly ashamed of themselves. Down the table my aunt's voice slipped out, thin as a thread. Dear God, she really did that. Something cracked in the air. Smirks unraveled. Even the floor felt different under my shoes, like the whole place had shifted an inch. The general kept his glass raised, eyes locked on mine, steady, unblinking, daring the room to argue with gravity. To Captain Calder. Cling. Command voice. Final. The turn was instant and clumsy. People who'd laughed at me seconds ago scrambled to stand, glasses lifted in jerky little movements before settling into something firmer as the reality sank in. Crystal clinked around the hall, not festive so much as solemn, an anthem with no words. I didn't move. Stunned, yes, but clear. Minutes earlier I'd been the punchline. Now the center of gravity had shifted and the jokes had nowhere to go. For the first time in years I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the family's cautionary tale. I was seen and they couldn't look away. Logan's face went the color of a sunburn. It's just, there's been a misunderstanding, he managed, eyes ricocheting from the general to the carpet. My mother stared at her lap, twisting a napkin until the fabric begged for mercy. She couldn't meet my eyes, couldn't even get close. Shame sat on her shoulders like weight she finally felt. In the corner, Cole's arm slid off his wife's waist. The showroom confidence he'd worn all evening drained out. He muttered something and guided her toward the back doors, steps small and fast, retreat the only tactic left. I rose slowly. Chair legs scraped the wood, louder than any microphone. I looked at my people, those who doubted, who whispered, who laughed when it was easy. The tremor that had rattled me earlier was gone. In its place, a calm that felt issued, not borrowed. I don't need anyone to certify my worth, I said. Even tone. Brief. Each word landing where it needed to. I've always known who I am. Tonight just made it obvious. Silence deepened. It wasn't fear of me. It was the weight of what they'd witnessed and couldn't talk their way around. They'd seen the salute. They'd heard the facts. No rumor can survive that kind of daylight. The MC, so eager a minute ago, set the microphone down. He gave one sad crackle and quit. His grin collapsed into something closer to regret. Around the room, shoulders slumped under a burden I didn't have to distribute. The ones who'd clapped at my humiliation stared at their plates. Even Logan, the golden son, kept his eyes glued to the floor, jaw clenched hard enough to hurt. The quiet that followed was heavier than the jeers that came before it. And for once the weight wasn't mine to carry. The noise had changed. Not cruelty anymore, guilt. The kind that can't be joked past. I didn't add another word. Restraint is a blade when you know how to hold it. The general's presence had already cut through every lie, every whisper, every cheap toast. In the way they avoided my eyes, I saw the verdict land. They'd sentenced themselves better than I ever could. I pushed through the heavy doors and stepped into the night. Dry Texas air rushed my face, dust and hot asphalt in the breath of it. For the first time all evening my back felt light, no eyes hanging there like weight. The chatter behind me belonged to another world, one I didn't have to push through anymore. My pulse, wild an hour ago, settled into something steady. The ache that had lived in my chest for years loosened its grip. Under the jaundiced street lamp, the military vehicle waited, dark frame, long shadow, engine ticking as it cooled. Not moving. Not loud. Just there. A fixed point. A reminder that truth doesn't negotiate with rumor. Inside the hall, the party limped on in low murmurs. Shame is heavy, they could carry it themselves. Whether they changed or didn't was no longer my mission. Their approval used to feel like a medal I'd never earn. Tonight I finally understood it for what it was, decorative at best and not mine to wear. I crossed the lot to my car, steps firm, breath easing deeper with each stride. The night stung my cheeks and cleared my head at the same time. My worth had never been theirs to issue or revoke. It was mine, always had been. In the quiet, thoughts settled like dust after rotor wash. Honor isn't a label someone pins on you at a banquet. It's how you move when nobody's clapping. It's what you carry and keep. Hand on the door handle, I glanced back once. The cone of yellow light, the silhouette of that green truck, the big Texas sky going on forever. It felt like a seal pressed over a chapter I'd hauled too long. I slid in, turned the key and let the engine catch. No applause. No spike of vindication. What rose instead was quieter and stronger. A freedom that didn't need witnesses. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need a crowd to understand. I needed this. The calm, immovable certainty that I am enough, and always was.